Let's start with how have you been?
Oh, I've been great, man. I'm still trying to process. Do you guys purposely, do you guys understand how intimidating this is? Like, I'm from the Middle East, right? And so what's going on in Palestine, what's gone on in the Middle East in general, what's gone on in Lebanon, like the last 4 or 5 years, is very heavy. And so I'm tethered to a world that I think is governed by a very different reality, man. A very different on the day to day, like what people experience. And so to dip into that world and to kind of dip back into, into this world and always be shocked by how normal everything around me is. I've kind of had to develop that. I don't know. I've had to kind of compartmentalize, mentally, where I'm at emotionally with my surroundings. So yeah, I think practicing gratitude has been very difficult, but also very necessary, man. I think a lot of these borders are drawn very arbitrarily, but I do believe in this notion of home, and a lot of it ties into affect for me, how I feel when I'm in specific places, And so Zahle is where I'm from, man. That's my hometown. And I go in there, dude, first of all, I probably can't spend more than 48 hours without losing my shit. And as soon as I step there, like there's almost like a culture shock, but it's home. It feels like home. Like I've been a lot of places in the world. There's very few places that I felt, welcome in. I've always been a bit of an outsider, for whatever reason. Sometimes I wonder if that's just me also, Sometimes I wonder if in positioning yourself as an outsider, you kind of just reinforce or you invite that kind of engagement with your surroundings. And Salman Rushdie wrote about the Wizard of Oz and this idea of going back home, and he was like, it's going back home. It's like recidivism to the known. You're going back to what you know, but ultimately, you've changed, that place has changed. It's always like a very dynamic relationship. I think that comfort that we seek is sometimes elusive and is a lot more, is a lot more kind of mental or conceptual than anything else. But to watch your home fall apart and to feel helpless about it, man, and then mixed in with, a little bit of a dose of guilt, or why do I get to, sometimes, man, it's very difficult to enjoy, the very, very simple things in life. A lot of days I just wake up, I'm like, I'm 44 years old, man. I got a fucking PhD. I speak multiple languages, and so I'm sorry. I don't mean that. And I know there's a very arrogant way to preface all of this. But I'm a fairly smart dude, man. I have no clue how any of this shit works. I don't, and it's fun pretending, whatever. But I also, man, I feel like a giant kid sometimes. If I can be honest, I look at my life and I'm like, oh, fucking sneakers. I get to work part-time. I get to go tell jokes at night on stage. I don't have any dependents that, I'm the boss of me. It took me a while to even mention to people that that's what I did. I had friends that knew me for 7, 8 years, 9 years, 10 years. And they'd be like, yo, you never mentioned that. And I think on some level is I got exposed to so much trauma, man, to so much you see a dark side of humans, man, a dark side of human behavior, what people are willing to do to other people, what people are willing to do to themselves. And it's very, very heavy because in 2 years of doing that work, I'm You know, at one point I was going to say rewarding, like it's rewarding work, but I don't know that it's rewarding in any kind of way. I think it broke me more than it rewarded me at all. And I don't know that I can genuinely say that in 2 years, I don't know if anything I did made a difference, man. There's a very like bleak way to look at things. It's a very bleak way to look at your contributions and your impact on other people's lives. It's also a very bleak way to look at just like the world, man. But broke my heart. It broke my heart, man, to see people come back and as shells of themselves. To see what that does to a person, like on a social level, on a human level, on a family level, you know, like the sanctity of family. I don't know, man. It made me reassess a lot. Like I got exposed to a lot of that work fairly young, maybe if I came into it but you know, as at a later age in life, you know, or like where I'm at now. But at 22, that was like a lot to take in. There was a lot of darkness, man. There was a lot of darkness, and it's very different. It's very different than like I hate to say it this way. You're consuming it. You're experiencing it almost. You watch a movie, you're consuming something, but this is like a shared experience, man. There's something very visceral about people sharing like their deepest trauma. And if you're even remotely like empathetic, man, and that's where like when I start thinking of some of like the codes of conducts for therapists, man, like you're not, and I get it, man, you're not supposed to give somebody a hug. You don't know how to, you know, like whatever. But yo, sometimes on a human level, like, yo, that hug will go a long way. A lot of these institutions in society, and I started to see like working in education, because education is one of them, you know, mental health is definitely one of them, prisons, you know, there's a lot of these institutions in society that serve to normalize us. You know, you just fucking make sure that we think the same way, that we behave the same way, that we have, you know, to an extent. Okay, some of us are still gonna think that you can fly and fucking moonwalk through time. But as much as possible. And I think like there's a social need to that, man. It can't be fucking anarchy. We can't just, you know, you can't just have everybody just doing whatever the hell they want, or like thinking, you know, there needs to be like a baseline level. But ultimately, the more I became involved with a lot of these different institutions, specifically like mental health and education, I started to understand that these institutions are not there to serve us, that we are fodder for these institutions. Like people are literally the actual oil that keeps the machine going. I think it's very important if you could transfer your ideas to paper or to some form, man, maybe draw them out. Like I'm a writer by trade, I guess, whatever. I would say that like, yeah, my creative medium would be writing, you know, and performing in comedy, but ultimately that would be, I can't draw, man. If you could paint your ideas, or if you could sculpt your ideas, but I think there's something very important about like fashioning a physical medium, because it's almost like giving your ideas life, like, or making them concrete, man, because ideas are just this is expansive. You know, they're very diffuse. It's very easy for an idea to just almost evaporate, you know, to just kind of just become so big and loose that it's not there. And I think putting it on paper, for me at least, grounds it. I have these wild fucking ideas, you know. I think we can fucking fly, man. I think as human beings, I think we used to be able. I think every culture has like, there's these archetypes across all cultures of like flying people, or like supermen, you know, or supreme beings. I think we can move backwards in time. And so sometimes it's very hard to have, you know, it's very hard to be like, how do I fucking contain all of that shit, all of this weird shit, you know, and then pretend like I even understand how time works. You know, you're like, this thing starts at 8. Do you know how many alarms I set? Just to make sure, like 8 o'clock, I'm like, yo, it's cool. Like, I know how this works, but also I don't, man. I don't. And whatever. I don't know if we can fly. I don't think it matters. I don't think it matters. But I wish that people would have weird ideas like that. I think the world would be like a much more interesting place. I see it, man. Like, I think that's my main, as an educator, like that was my main thing with schools. You know, I could see how you stunt curiosity, man. You stop, like you don't, everything's got to conform to this box, you know? The kid that can't pay attention has ADD. Maybe your shit's boring, man. How about that? Maybe this 6-year-old kid isn't supposed to be cooped up in a fucking classroom for 8 hours a day, you know? Let's take him outside for a bit. But in terms of ideas, man, I think it's very important to like remove that limit, man. Just fucking, you know, and I think if everybody allowed themselves to do that, it's very liberating in a lot of ways. I think sanity is very overrated, frankly. I think sanity and wanting to hang on to like this notion of the sane or what's socially acceptable, man, fucking go wild. Nobody knows what the fuck is going on. I think that's been the most liberating kind of, I don't know. I shouldn't project it. I shouldn't be like, yo, nobody knows what the, that's how I feel. I don't know what the fuck's going on. But I've have to actively practice or learn, I should say. At one point, learn and now actively practice just being kind to yourself, man. It's okay to just not be on all the time and not be perfect at every, you know, and just let things, just fucking breathe a little bit. Let things, I think I'm trying to let go of this need to control everything at every step of the way and to have things happen on my timetable. You know, again, it's very, I hate myself sometimes for saying this shit. The universe knows, man. The universe knows, and I think good ideas take time. And I just think we've lost the ability to be patient, man. You know, a lot of it is perspective. And yo, you're hungry, I get it. Perspective is not gonna fucking feed you, you know? I get that. Like, I don't, again, it's very difficult to say these things and not sound very reductionist. But yo, what's my bad day, man? That like my dreams are not gonna work out, you know? The like finances are a little tight and I might not be able to make rent, you know, that I can't afford this trip or that. Those are my bad days. And man, that in itself, like, yo, sometimes I hate the person that I am for sweating these kinds of things, man. Because like, if you take a step back, I'm like, yo, don't be this, like, it's a lot of work. And so I think that's why I think it's very important to slow down, man. I think everything around us moves so fucking fast. I think it's very important to slow down. And in slowing down, to just check yourself along the way, man. Like right now, man, we're 3 people in a room, right? This is a singular event in the sense, but we have very different experiences of the same moment. You know, and that's something that I find infinitely fascinating. Like, I would love to tap in right now, dude. I would love to tap into your brain for like 2 minutes. Like, if I could have any superpower, it used to be teleporting, but no, man, I would love to experience. I don't know how we got here, by the way, but I would love to experience life through other people's eyes, man. I think that we get so caught up in our shit, and we're so full of ourselves, man. We're so fucking full of ourselves, especially with like fucking phones and platforms. And I would love to just practice a little bit more empathy, man. I think empathy is very difficult for me in general. Again, I don't want to project this on people, but I struggle with empathy. I try to hang on to it because I think we're much more fragile than we care to admit. Life is very brittle, man, and it flips on a dime. It flips on a dime, man. You can go outside, you literally go outside, God forbid, man, slip, fall, crack a vertebrae, your entire life. You can't walk anymore, you can't, your bodily functions just completely, that shit can flip on a fucking dime. And so to go back to that, how do you practice gratitude, man? Just be grateful for the shit that could happen that hasn't happened, you know? There's this weird, like, dissolution of boundaries, man. Fucking stop with the filters. Stop with the fucking filters. And we keep feeding, man. I see these things on Instagram, man. I don't know if everybody, I wrote my friend today. I was like, yo, stop feeding the facial recognition software, man. All of these, show us yourself 20 years ago. Show us yourself when you were 6. Show us, what the fuck are you just willy-nilly giving this information out for, man? It's insane. It's insane. We are responsible for our own demise willingly, and for such cheap cost, man. Just fucking the cheapest form of entertainment and amusement. We gave it all up. We fucking gave it all up. Again, a very pessimistic view of where we're headed. And it might be old man screaming at the clouds, man. This might be fine. Every generation probably thought that the world, but I think that the human experience is fundamentally being altered, man. I think we communicate in different ways. There's less personal contact. Human beings are social people. We're social people, and we've created makeshift ways of interacting with one another that provide the illusion of connectivity, but it's not there, man. If anything, it makes us like much more distance from, each other. None of this is like, out there, man. Like the anonymity that allows us to behave in a certain way online would definitely affect how we behave towards each other when we come in contact with one another, man. I don't think things are going to work out. I really don't. I really deep down, genuinely, I was like, why would they work out, man? Historically speaking, I think there's a great track record of things not working out. And so why the fuck would our era or our generation, there's been fucking famine is nothing new, genocide is like, why would it fucking work out? We're just going to keep doing the same shit over and over and over until we just can't, man, until we just run this shit down to the ground. We've done nothing. We're maybe, what was it, like six agricultural cycles away from literally depleting the fucking soil, man. The shit that we're growing has no more nutrients because all we want is more. All we want is more and faster, more produce, faster, fucking, mass agriculture. The shit that we eat, man. The fuel, the shit that you put in your body, So, I hope I'm wrong. I really hope I'm wrong. I'm really not the type of person that is attached. I don't need to win, man. I really don't. I think people are too attached to needing to be right. And despite all of that, I'm very grateful for it, man. This is the one sliver of whatever that I hang on to. I have, very selfishly and very privileged to say this, I have a good life, man. I can't, this is zero issue to complain. I would say the one thing that I would love to do and grow into is just contribute more, man. I still think that, again, I lead a very egocentric, self-centered, sure, I contribute through work, man, but I think I just need to be a kinder human on the day-to-day, in my day-to-day interactions. Do random, I really think random acts of kindness, genuinely. You'll pay for somebody's groceries if you can, man. Buy somebody a meal, do some random shit for some random person. Why the fuck not? I think that's the next step of my personal growth.